Hey, my name is Marius. I'm a med student and a suicide hotline volunteer. I was addicted to lust for over 10 years and eventually quit. Now I help others reach the same transformation that I have. Today, I want to present you a case study of a person that I am helping right now and find key universal things that I think anyone who's struggling with porn and lust would benefit from. Alright, so here's the post that the person I help posted in the free community that I host. And you can see all the shame and guilt and lack of sleep that this relapse caused this guy. But the funny thing is that I had a call with this same person just a few hours before the relapse. Now, what we have talked about on that call is exactly what led to him relapsing. You can see that he described his behavior as careless. Before going to sleep, he went and scrolled on his phone, which is his addiction pattern. I asked him how often does the same pattern happen over and over again? And he said that probably most of the relapses that he has are the same way, like just scrolling in his bed at night, and at some point, he's not even in charge of his actions anymore. He just compulsively searches for porn on the internet. And so what I was trying to help him with is to understand that in that moment when he's already scrolling on the phone and he's getting temptations, that's not the time to start fighting and battling. The battle starts before it begins. Why are you taking your phone to the bed? Why are you scrolling? And by the way, I do not blame this guy for doing that. I know how hard it is if you have an addiction of scrolling in bed at night to break it. But that's what it takes if you want to quit the porn addiction as well, in this particular case. How do you imagine you will break one of the hardest, most primitive temptations that lust is if you can't really control your phone usage? And the thing is, he knows that it was bad for him, but he just couldn't control himself. And so what we tried to realize is that porn is the core problem, but there are other problems that we can take care of first before addressing the core problem. In John chapter 8, verse 11, it said, "Neither do I condemn you, go and sin no more." Now, if you still continue sinning the same way, over and over again, it just says that you do not learn from your past mistakes, which is one of the core principles in making progress in Christianity overall. So the goal for me with this guy in his particular situation would be to help him solve his porn kind of doom scrolling addiction, especially at night before going to sleep. And I think most people have that tendency to pick up the phone whenever we feel stressed or lonely or bored. But it's something that once you face head on, let's say you're stressed, but you're not doing what you used to do, you're not picking up your phone, you're not numbing yourself down with cheap pleasure, that problem, that stress, you are able to look at that problem, stress, loneliness, boredom, from the third person's perspective and develop more healthy ways to deal with that problem. So if at first it's like very hard to not crave scrolling on your phone at night, let it be hard. Let it suck for a little while. I promise it gets easier and easier. Now let's move to another lesson, which in my roadmap I call seeking God's strength. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, it said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Now a lot of Christians know that their willpower is not sufficient enough to deal with all the urges. And in the moment of temptation, they need to seek God's strength. And that's why this thing seeking God's strength is in this roadmap. But the problem is that in the moment of heavy temptation, that's not the right time to kind of learn to seek God in that moment. Again, just as the breaking addiction patterns, it's very, very valuable to prepare in advance. And how do you prepare in advance? That's such a weird thing to say. Well, I like to call it developing skill of seeking God's strength. So essentially it's a skill and you build that skill by doing it more often and progressing over time. So if you find it difficult to ask God to pray in the moment of temptation, why not try to do the same thing when you are not tempted with one of the heaviest temptations, lust? A very good example that I give is from my own life, is when I go to a store and I see the candies and I start craving them and want to buy them. In that moment, I know I shouldn't do that and I force myself to seek God. And that's how I kind of practice, that's how I learned to seek God in the moments of temptation. I just started with a relatively light temptation and I progressed it. And now, even if I get tempted, I'm able to see God in that moment and not succumb to it. Now, in this particular case, we have a very clear thing that we can do. If you find it hard to stop scrolling on your mind, if you have the same pattern as this guy, then it's time for you to develop your skill of seeking God in the moment of temptation, in the moment of any sort of craving. And if you want to scroll on your bed, you feel like you have this need and you are going to miss out if you don't do that, I promise you that the moment you nail this down and you stop being addicted to phone and kind of numbing your pain down, that will be the moment of major breakthrough in your lust porn addiction. And that's basically for today's video. If you'd like to join a community of Christian men who are trying to become virtuous, as well as find guidance and accountability, join by clicking the link in the description down below.